Namaskar.
Pranam, sir, from all of us here.
So you can start right now, whichever way you want to start. Hmm?
Yes, sir. So there are around 23 questions.
Ah,
We will start off.
right.
We will stop whenever you say.
So others can smile and shake their heads, like I do. Hmm? So you can start now,
Yes, sir.
Sridhar. Huh.
Yeah. So the first question is from Kalpana Sriram.
Right.
I find that when I have kind and compassionate thoughts towards those who are suffering,
Mm.
these thoughts do not last for a very long time.
Uh-huh.
Whereas when I feel angry towards someone, that anger tends to last for a very long duration. And this leads to a lot of distraction while doing Kriya, and I feel distressed by this.
Right.
Can you please help me with this?
Yes. So since you are not already a self realized soul yet, since we are progressing, it's quite common and quite natural that there will be less compassion and more anger. I have known people who are very nice, very orthodox, practice everything, do Sandhya Vandanam twice, but however very angry. So, anger, you see, among rishis also, it's so difficult to remove anger totally. Look at Durvasa. So, when the anger becomes less, with constant progress and attention, then the compassion will increase. So, what the way is not to control anger, but to increase your compassion. So that even when you get angry, it has to be somebody, right? You're angry with. The moment the anger rises, give compassion to that person. I mean, in the sense, say, what am I doing? This guy needs help. Why am I angry? Like, there is no magic cure. I can't give you a pill for this. There is no such pill available. We can only watch and try to change it as much as we can and make sure that your love and affection increases so that your anger decreases. There is no other way to do that. An exercise, if I could recommend, is think of the person or situation which makes you most angry. Conjure it up even when that person is not there, right? And close your eyes and say, "You are also God in human form. Why am I angry with you?" And try to move forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So the next question is from Meenakshi Nutulapati. Despite my best efforts, I am repeatedly facing hurdles and struggling to progress on the spiritual path. How can we manage hurdles in our spiritual path?
When the spiritual path becomes the most important thing in one's life, all hurdles vanish. Till then, there are likely to be hurdles. Uh, Suppose I love something, music or something. If I really love that, my mind is fully absorbed in it. There are no obstacles. So, what we have to do is to increase our longing for the spiritual experience so much so that it is my first priority. Till then, obstacles are bound to happen. Every human being has obstacles, especially if you are on the spiritual path. If you are not on the spiritual path, you don't see the obstacles because you don't consider them as obstacles. You think it's natural. It's only when you embark upon the spiritual path, then you see some things as obstacles. It's natural. So there's nothing to panic. I want to tell you a little story. There was this gentleman in West Bengal, in Calcutta, during the time of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Now, he could do many things. He could meditate to a great extent and so on. But there was one thing he couldn't handle, which was very, very strong, and that was his lust. This he found very difficult to handle. He saw anybody and anything, and suddenly this lustful feeling will come up in him. And he was a sadhak, so he was worried about it. Otherwise, why would he worry about it? Lots of people who carry on, right? So he was worried about it. Now he wanted to ask Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Then whenever he wanted to ask him, the thought would appear in his mind. Such a pure man, how can I ask him about lust? I mean, I can't even discuss with him. He's such a pure man. So he couldn't ask. So one day, Ramakrishna was standing near the river, holding on to a tree and looking at the river quietly, and nobody was around. So this guy gathered some courage, and went and said, he did pranams first, and then he said, I wanted to ask you something. I was wondering how to ask a pure man like you, not even the subject. My lust is so strong. I'm finding it so difficult to handle it. What do you think? The reaction was very interesting. Why I'm saying this is to tell this lady or whoever asked this question, man or woman.
Meenakshi, woman.
Meenakshi, yeah. This fish-eyed lady.
Madam, sir.
Okay. Right. Namaskaram. So let me tell this fish eyes, Meenakshi, that even Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had the problem. Because when this man went and told him about lust and did pranams, he put his hand around his shoulder and said, you know what, at one time I also had the same problem. This man couldn't utter a word. He burst into tears. He couldn't say a word. He just sat there and came away. So what I'm saying is, it will happen. When you are in the path of sadhana, all these things happen. But you should keep trying to overcome it. There is no other way. There is no shortcut. There is no pill. If you say that I can overcome my obstacles like anger and so on by simply looking at the spot between my eyebrows, nothing will work. You will only end up cross-eyed after some time. So there is no such shortcut.
Sir, but with your blessings, I think it is possible.
Well, with my blessings and the blessings of Sri Guru Babaji and all the great gurus, not only me, maybe it is possible. But we should keep trying. Don't give up.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome.
So the next question is from Srivani Rajiv. Sometimes I feel I am progressing in my spiritual practice. Sometimes I feel very depressed. Am I progressing or going back? I am confused.
No, this is a question which I can't answer. Whether the depression is due to the progress or the depression is natural in her, I don't know. So, if the person is already a depressed kind of person, sadhana and any practice that will make you introvert will increase the depression. So that's why I don't give kriya to people who already have a history of bipolar or things like that. Because that will not change the situation. It's not a cure for that. On the other hand, if you are depressed because of other reasons, or because your sadhana is not going okay, if that is the reason for your depression, then continued sadhana will help you to overcome it. If it is clinical depression, then sadhana is not a solution. You need to take steps required.
So the next question is from Akash Subramanian. Slightly long question, sir. In certain disorders of the mind, like anxiety disorder and depression, the mind gives rise to
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Tell me.
the mind gives rise to unpleasant thoughts about loved ones, stroke form of God, stroke self without intention. This is a huge source of guilt and further anxiety. As we know, thoughts also have an impact on karma, but we do not know if unintentional thoughts that are actually bad and repetitive in nature lead to bad karma. Would such unwanted intrusive thoughts about deities in particular cause bad karma, and how can one get over this?
First of all, if this is due to a disorder like a bipolar and so on, the first thing is to see a good psychiatrist and get treated for it. In meditation, there is no solution for this. So, if it is a psychological problem that you already have, then you should deal with a psychiatrist and a psychologist and get rid of it. And you might have to have medication for a long time. Don't suddenly give up medication and think that if I do sadhana it will disappear. No, it won't. However, on the other hand, if you are not suffering from that problem, if it is not a clinical disorder, then if such thoughts occur, you can substitute it with good thoughts. But the thing is, if you are suffering already from a clinical disorder, however much you try to control, you cannot control it. They keep appearing. You suppose a god comes and you say, oh, what is this fellow? I want to kill him, and things like that. Now, this is a sign of maniac disorder. It is not a sign of a sadhak practicing sadhana. Of course, if such a person is practicing sadhana, there is no way he could get rid of it except through chanting some mantras and trying to keep the mind calm. You see, first of all, let me tell you, spiritual pursuits are meant for people who are generally normal, not for people who have psychological disorders. That, of course, the psychiatrist might ask you to meditate for a while in a different way. That is different. That is not sadhana. So, I don't see a solution for this. Probably a psychiatrist might give a good solution for this.
So just one thing, if you could also tell us something about the effect on karma of these unintentional thought, it would be very nice.
Unintentional thoughts will have no effect on your karma.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely none.
Thank you.
Don't worry about that. Throw that out of the window and say, you're a good boy. You have some little bit of a problem, which we need to work on. Okay? Don't worry. There are many people like you. Remember this. Many young people today are affected in some way. It's not a neurological, it's probably a psychological problem. So you need to work on that on one side and also continue to have faith in God. Even if you hate God, let me explain this to you. Ravana is supposed to have attained moksha because he hated Rama, and I was constantly thinking of him. So I have a solution for it. Keep hating me and continually think of me. I'm not joking. You say this man is not giving me solutions like that. Keep thinking bad thoughts about it. But at least you'll think of me, right? So that will save you from the karma and take you to the better sphere.
Thank you so much.
That's your mother?
Yes, my mother Radhika.
Okay.
Sir, the next question is again a long one. It's from Krishna Chavali. Dear Master, pranams. You know that we have a Sangha at Kakinada called Shri Guru Satsang. In the past, we did online book reading sessions on your first and second book.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. We deeply looked into your spiritual experiences and the hardships you had. We also tasted a few drops of nectar of it and got nurtured.
1 minute, may I interfere? At some point, can your mother and can Akash and his mother come and see me and go at some point?
Sure, sir.
That will be our blessing and gift, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Move.
Yeah. We know that you are our spiritual elder, guide, and mentor, though we hardly meet. All of us chant and meditate on Guru Mantra every day, and without which we do not commence any of our daily routines.
Great.
Is it possible for you to come online exclusively with our group once?
How many
Maybe
people
by-
are there? How many people are there in the group?
Krishna, can you please answer, sir?
Namaste, Master.
No.
This is Krishna.
I know you.
We have about 30 to 50 people, and I don't know how many will be available on the day that you schedule, but I try to.
So where are you?
I'm in Kakinada, Master.
In Kakinada.
Near Pitapuram.
Oh, you're
Sripada
close.
Vallabhadra.
Are you close to Pitapuram?
Yes, Master. I always think of you coming here to Pitapuram and to meet us also. Because
So, wait a minute. Instead of online, at some point I'll go to Pitapuram and pass through Kakinada and see you.
Thank
Instead of
you, Master.
online.
that would be great, Master.
Yeah.
It will be great.
We'll do that. It will take a few months, but I'll do that. Better than online.
Please keep it in mind, Master. Don't forget.
Okay.
Thank you, Master.
Thank you, Krishna.
Sir, the next question is from M. Anuradha. Can Bija Mantra of Bala Tripura Sundari be done while doing daily chores, or it should be done only during the three Sandhyas or during the Brahma Muhurta?
You can do during Brahma Muhurtam. You can do during Sandhya times, but not when you are doing your daily chores. No. Not Bala Mantra or any of the Sri Vidya concerned mantras should be practiced while you are doing other things. No. That is disrespect to the deity. You cannot do that. Either you do it during the Sandhya time or you do once a day. Or if you are early waking up during Brahma Muhurta, you can do it, but not at other times. It's a very sacred thing, you can't do it. Like you will be sweeping and then chanting Naman. No, this is not possible. Or cooking, no.
The next is from Subrayadu Sripada. Sir, while doing Kriya, meditation, Sandhya Vandanam, Nama Japa, Stotra, etc., involuntarily my focus is on the Agnya Chakra.
Okay.
Do I need to deliberately focus on the heart center, or can I continue the way it is happening naturally?
If it is naturally happening in the Ajna Chakra, you should stay there. No need to bring it to any other center, including the heart center. Stay. At one point, if it naturally comes to your heart center, stay. Don't try to change it.
So the next is from Shivakumar. How does one know if one is walking on the right path?
This is a difficult question. What in the first place makes you decide to walk on the path? This is to be clarified. Why do you think you're walking on the path first? What is it that made you think that you're walking on the path? Right, we will come later. Path. Probably most people want to walk on the spiritual path because they want to be free of their limitations, or they want to have darshan of the deity in some form, or because they want to control their minds and reach the state of samadhi. These are some of the reasons, general reasons why you do. Now when you say right path, it has many connotations, the word right. It could be the right path, but it may not be the right path for you. This is possible. Because everybody doesn't walk on the same path. You see, the Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, 18 adhyayas are there, and each chapter is called a yoga. Starting from Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Every chapter is called a yoga. So which means, at least, according to Vyasa, there are 18 ways to the Supreme. Go, the first is fundamental. So let's say 17 ways to the Supreme. So it's not a question of whether you are walking on the right path, but whether it is the right path for you. If you are a devotionally minded person who melts when he hears the sound of names of God or beautiful music, devotional music, then it is futile for that person to try to walk on the path of Ramana Maharshi and try to find. It won't work because you are a devotional minded person. For you it is a different kind of thing. It's not Jnana Marga, it's Bhakti Marga for you. Right? And if you are intellectual and you say, oh, all this bhajan, kirtan, these gods and all are not existing, I want to find the self. If that is your attitude, whether you are right or wrong, that is different. Maybe you are wrong, maybe if that is your attitude, then the path you have to follow is that of the Upanishad, question, answer, Viveka Chodamani, Vairagya, Viveka, and then try to find out your true identity, the Jnana Marga. See, there are two kinds. Then there are people who are very good people, but they don't want to practice anything, but they work for others. For such people, Karma Yoga is good. Gradually the mind is purified by Karma Yoga. And then you come to the rest. So on and so forth. Then there are yogis who like to meditate and reach. What I am trying to say is, if you belong to any one of these categories, the other category may not be okay for you. However, the best thing is to judiciously collect the best elements from all and put them into practice, which is not so easy to do. Usually one side will predominate. That's okay also if it predominates. No harm. So that is the question about the right path. So there are different right paths for different people. Even the practice of Sri Vidya, for some people, I think nowadays for most people, Kaula Marga is better, the left-hand path. The Samaya Marga is a very pure path which everybody cannot follow. So what I am trying to say is that may not be right for you, this may be right for you. However, there is a general definition of the right path. If you are following the spiritually right path, whichever be the path you are following, one, you will not cause harm to others. You will not think bad about others. Yourself will not be so self-centered, it will be a little more less self-centered. You will lead a pure life, and you will try to live without creating pain to other living beings. In your action, in your food, in your everything. And more than that, once you start, you will stick to the path and not move away. then you are on the right path. What is the criteria to say if you are progressing, right or left, on the path? Sarvatra samabuddhaya. That under all situations, your mind will remain tranquil and not get agitated. If this quality is there, then you are moving on the right path. If it is not there, cultivate it so that you move on the right path.
So the next is from Mallika. Sir, you mentioned in your autobiography about Pitapuram and Manik Nagar. If I am deserving, would you please share the experience you encountered at those places?
When I go to Kakinada, I'll share it with you. Not on internet.
Okay, sir. The next is from Kamal Kumar Tumuluru. We have the Guru Mantra. I also have an Ishta Devata Mantra. For chanting most of the time, which should one focus on?
Guru Mantra is only for starting your practice. Ishta Mantra can be practiced at all times because Ishta is your Ishta. Ishta Mantra means that aspect of the deity which you like or which is your which you are more attached to. Not in the ordinary sense of the term, but more attached. So that Ishta Mantra, especially if it has been given to you by somebody, then you should give more attention to that. But before you do that, start with the Guru Mantra. Sometimes it may happen that the Guru Mantra and the Ishta Mantra are the same. Then there is no problem. Like in the Ramakrishna mission, when somebody is initiated into the Ramakrishna mantra by the president, they are given a mantra. It is both an Ishta mantra as well as a Guru mantra. There is no difference in the two.
Thank you.
Tumuluru is looking nice today. He's looking nice. Huh?
Thank you.
You're also okay, but he's looking nice. When bright, I think he's eating good food now. Okay, pass.
Yeah. So the question from Devalapalli Srinivasa Rao is, humble pranams to the holy lotus feet of Sir.
Who is this?
Devalapalli Srinivasa Rao, sir.
Okay.
Humble pranams to the holy lotus feet of Sir. How does one become receptive to the grace and blessings of the Guru?
How does one become? By clarifying, purifying the mind and accepting the blessings. I mean, there is no technique for that. And even for giving blessing, there is no technique. It's just a flow of energy from someone to the other. To receive it, you have to keep your mind open to receive. That's all. There is no, I can't find any complicated way of explaining this. If the mind is clear and if you trust somebody and you keep it open, then you receive the blessings. Okay.
So the next is from Karri Satyanarayana, a slightly long question. Respected Sir, pranams. Though devotion should arise naturally, considering the family of Lord Shiva as my own seems to arouse some devotional component in me. In this regard, I am chanting Om Namah Shivaya before silent meditation of Kriya.
Okay.
In bracket, he has mentioned, took your permission through email.
Okay.
I request you to give me mantra initiation for goddess Devi, Ganapati, and Kumaraswamy. I want to chant them either together or randomly, though I may do so only for brief periods.
But I can't do it on the internet. Online, we can't give initiation. Oh, not part. Yeah, I did give that Bala mantra because thousands of people have been worrying me endlessly for years. So I thought, let me do it. But I don't think we should. I should do that in online. So at some point we'll do it. Suppose we have Shivratri and he comes, we can get the Shiva mantra or something like that. Where does he live, this gentleman?
Sir, I live in AP, sir, Andhra Pradesh, Eluru,
Where?
sir.
AP where?
Near Vijayawada, sir, Eluru. Sir.
Eluru, okay.
Yes, sir, yes.
So what do we do? You're far away. Recently I went to Vijayawada, I didn't even know that you.
Sir, please, you suggest me, sir, whatever you say.
All right, but we can't do it online. It's not appropriate, okay?
Sir, sir.
So we need to see each other either here or in Eluru.
What is your suggestion, sir? Then?
So till then you can chant Om Namah Shivaya. There is no problem. Just think of Shiva. Even you don't want to think of Shiva, think of a linga. That's also fine. And then Om Namah Shivaya. The Panchakshara is anybody can chant the Panchakshara. But usually people say, it's been taught that when you chant the Panchakshara, you should lead a pure life and not eat non-vegetarian and so on. So that you have to give. Are you a vegetarian?
I eat non-veg.
So you have to be a little bit careful on that. But it's okay. Even if you chant Shiva as Bhairava, then there is no veg, non-veg, nothing is there. So you may chant, but it is not initiation. I am only suggesting that you may chant. I am not initiating you into the mantra. That we'll do at some point. Okay, so maybe sometime in 6-7 months I'll go to Pitapuram, I'm thinking. So maybe we can, then you take. Huh?
So the next is from Rajendra Kauta. Namaskaram Guru Garu. While doing Kriya, now in bracket he mentions, which is also a type of pranayama as you already mentioned. The goal is to simply observe the breath with no force.
Okay.
When I try, I find that I am not able to remain an observer for long. I am quickly going into the mode of deliberately breathing steadily in counts of 2:3:4, Puraka, Kumbhaka, and Rechaka, respectively. No matter how long I perform this, it never ceases to be a voluntary effort. I am wondering if I must start focusing on something else, like the buzz sound inside the brain, to avoid putting too much focus on the breath. Thank you. Namaste.
No, you should continue to deliberately pay attention to the breath and control the breath and go according to the rhythm which you have described, no harm. As you go on practicing, a time will come when automatically you will miss it and it will become like involuntary. Don't try to make it involuntary. The effect of trying to make something involuntary becomes very voluntary. So, stick to the voluntary and keep practicing till it deepens, and then one day you will see that you are doing it involuntarily. That is a better way.
Thank you.
So the next is from Pravallika. What qualities are required to become a great yogi?
Oh,
especially when we see jealousy, ego, anger, gossiping, and criticizing nature.
very good. So, what should we do? See, the question has the answer in itself. So, if you want to become a truly great yogi, avoid all the things that you have mentioned to the best of your capacity. It may not be 100% perfect, but try your best to avoid it as much as possible. That's all you need to do. Then you will become a big yogi, a great yogi. That's it.
So the next is from Chandramouli Panigrahi. Pranam Guruji. When we are on the spiritual path by doing yoga and meditation, do we still need to follow and do pujas and vratas? Thank you. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
If you enjoy doing your vratas and puja, you should continue with it. There is no disconnection between practicing your meditation and stopping your pujas. If you are meditating and if you feel that is self-sufficient and you don't have to do pujas and you are not attracted to them anymore, you can stop it, no harm. Till then, till such time, if you enjoy doing your puja, your meditation, and so, I'm sorry, the other, what did he say? Puja and
Vratas. Sir.
vratas. In fact, some vratas may help you to meditate. Like you fast for a day or you don't eat grapes. Some discipline can be introduced into the system, which then it is good, there is no harm. If it becomes too overwhelming and you get tired of it, then there is no harm in leaving it for a while and meditating. So, I would say it's a good idea even if you are a greatest of yogis, if you have an Ishta Devata, morning you get up and do that. Believe me, I don't go to the temple or anywhere, but in my room I have a Devi and a Krishna in my bedroom. People will say you don't need to do it, but I feel sometimes, always that I need to do it. So I get up in the morning. I don't want to come down and gather flowers, so mentally I offer some. There is Bhuvaneshwari there, and then there is Krishna on the other side, and there's a Shivling there. So people think, why this fellow like a barber shop, everything he has. It's okay, I am happy with that. Yeah. We are all only barbers anyway. So go round to all these places. I light a lamp, I offer some thing, and I do the Ishta mantra, and I enjoy it. So why not? Why should I say I become a yogi? So why should I do it? I love doing it. I do it. There's no harm in that, because it's not cutting into my time. And even if cutting, it's a good time to do. There's no harm. I enjoy it, so why not? If you enjoy it, why do you want to stop it? If you don't enjoy it, that's a different matter.
So the
Thank you,
next
Guru.
is from
Thank
Mr. V. Suresh. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Mr. Suresh, my humble pranams to Shri N. Will you be kind enough to teach me Kriya Yoga?
I have to see you first, meet you first, find out if it's okay, and then we'll do it. Huh? Kriya is open for all, but there may be some minimum things, requirements are there. So if I see somebody, then I would feel whether it's okay. Move.
Next is from Ravi Shankar. How to lessen the burden of Jivatma so that it merges with the Paramatma?
The Jivatma is not different from the Paramatma. You don't have to lessen any burdens from the Jiva. In its pure form, it's Paramatma itself. Why do I feel that it is Jiva? Because it is surrounded by all the conditionings of the mind. So, if I step by step remove the conditionings of the mind, which bind me to the understanding that the Jiva is different from the Paramatma, gradually when all these are removed, as when all the vrittis are removed from the mind, then Patanjali says Kaivalya, not Moksha. Why he says Kaivalya is because it's from the root Kevala, only. So when this purification happens and when the coverings of the Jivatma are removed, then the Jivatma says, oh, I am not different from, there is only one then left. Only one. And since there is only one, there is no clash, there is no competition, there is only one. And that one is not this little selfish individual me, it's the all-pervading Supreme Being. So you have to look at it that way only. Your Jiva has all the potential and everything of the Paramatma. You just need to remove the covers around it. When it is pure form, then it realizes that it is not different. You don't have to become, you know what I mean? You are, so what will you become? So think about this.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
So the next is from Mr. Deepak Kulkarni. In deep meditation, we come to know that what is present inside is also outside. The goal of human life is to reach the inside, Atmatva. Does the Atma look like the Linga Deha or Prakasha or light? And what is there beyond the mind?
It's a complicated question. What is there beyond the mind can never be understood by the mind, because by the very statement it is beyond the mind. So can the mind understand that which is beyond its capacity? It cannot. Right. So when the mind, having tried repeatedly and found it cannot rise above the mind itself, because it is the mind, when it gives up and says, this is not the way, that is called surrender. Not surrendering to somebody. When the mind, after constant sadhana, understanding, reading, working, realizes that what I am seeking is beyond the mind, so this mind, whatever circus it does, it cannot touch it. Then it keeps quiet. Enough. When it keeps quiet, then one sees that which is beyond the mind, because the mind is nowhere in the picture then. It is because of that that the mind has the capacity even to think. Without that, the mind cannot even think. So when the mind, which is such a tiny little thing, tries to reach that which is beyond, it tries, and then it falls. And then it accepts that I can't. When it accepts that, it becomes quiet and silent. That's called humility. That's called surrender. When this happens, then the only that is there. And that is the Atman. You don't have to qualify it as Paramatman, Jivatman, the Atman. Atman meaning that which is the source of my consciousness, which is the big I, not the small I, which is there in waking state, sleep, dream, and turiya. When this happens, then the inside and the outside are the same. There is no difference. You will rarely find pictures of some great souls like Ramana Maharshi, Siddhi Sai Baba, Akalkotkar Maharaj, with eyes closed, hardly. eyes are open, because there is no inside or outside. It is the same. But the fact remains that it can be found only inside first. When it is found inside, so you need to close your eyes at some point. When you find it inside, then you find that it is also outside. Then there is no effort, nothing is required. It's done. But before that, some effort is required. That's what I think.
So then Prashant Berry wants to know, what is the difference between Shruti and Smriti? Is the Bhagavad Gita Smriti or Shruti?
It is very difficult to define the Bhagavad Gita as Shruti and Smriti. Because on one hand, it gives you some directions according to situations. Then it becomes the Smriti. But since all that is being said according to Vyasa comes directly from Sri Krishna, Om Sri Paramatmane Namaha, is how every chapter starts. So it comes from the Paramatma in the form of Krishna here. Yeah. It is the only place where Krishna takes on the role of a Jagat Guru, of a Guru. Nowhere else. Sometimes he's playing with the gopis or instructing Arjuna how to fight. Then it's all at the level of Shruti, Smriti at that time. That which can be memorized. This is called Smriti. And Shruti is that which directly comes from the Supreme. So, Gita is a nice combination of both Shruti and Smriti. Now, if you ask me the definition of Shruti and Smriti, Shruti is eternal truth which doesn't adjust according to circumstances. It is always there. Smriti is that body of literature which can be changed according to time, period and circumstance. This is the... because when you say Smriti, it already means Smrita. That means it has to be in your memory. And the quality of memory and the quality of the brain differs from people to people. So Smriti can change according to circumstances. Shruti cannot change because it's a universal truth. And the Gita is a beautiful combination of Shruti and Smriti. And please note that it's called the Bhagavad Gita. It's a song. And in music, can you do anything without a Shruti? Then you cannot. It's a song. Song meaning it is not just words. It's coming from a different level altogether. So, both Shruti and Swara have to be there in a song, in a Geetam. Otherwise, if you sing, they'll say this is Apaswaram. Both have to be there. So, in the Gita, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is the Swara, which is the Smriti. It's also required. And the Shruti, which is the truth. Both are there.
Sir, next is from M. Anuradha. What is Ajapa Gayatri? How Hamsa is related to it? Or how can we correlate it with Ajapa Gayatri?
Basically, the word mantra is used for chanting as well as not loudly chanting. When it is not loudly chanted, then it becomes ajapa. Also, when it is constantly in the mind, even without conscious effort, then also it is ajapa. We need not even be wanting to chant, it is going on, then it becomes ajapa. And it cannot be heard outside because you are not deliberately chanting it loudly. So, as far as Gayatri is concerned, there is the Gayatri which is chanted. But remember, Gayatri is also chanted for you to hear, not for others to hear. Because it is a rahasya. Otherwise, why would it be whispered into somebody's ear? Why can't we shout loudly or put up a loudspeaker and say, Om Bhu Bhu? You sit near, the student sits near, and it's whispered into the ear, right? Because it is meant for ajapa, not just ordinary japa. Unfortunately, today the internet is full of people loudly screaming the Gayatri in different tunes. In fact, when you chant the Gayatri, even the Gayatri meter is not obeyed. Somebody, Om Bhur Bhuvassuva. What is this? This is not Gayatri. You cannot shout or make it into some kind of music. That is not Gayatri. Gayatri is to be chanted quietly inside the mind in the Gayatri meter in a particular way. The other day in Gujarat, somebody had put this Gayatri song in the reverse mechanism, in the car. When he's reversing, it's singing loudly. I said, what is, this is disrespect to Gayatri. So, Gayatri is to be chanted in the heart quietly. That itself is a japa japa. Then she adds something about Hamsa. Now, Hamsa, I didn't get the connection. It has nothing to do with the Gayatri, but there is something called Hamsa Gayatri, yes, of course. Now, Hamsa has two meanings. One is the swan, the white swan, Paramahamsa. And the other is Hangsa, which is inside going on in us all the time. So, when you close your eyes and chant Hum with your breath, when you inhale, and Sa when you exhale, then it becomes the Hamsa Gayatri. There are other words you don't have to include. Simply by chanting Hum, Sa, internally, you are already doing the Ajapa Japa of Hamsa. And if you do that, then you don't need any other things to do. No need of going into the details of the mantra. So, according to the Rishis, one person who chants the Gayatri regularly and does Sandhya Vandana regularly, after finishing that, for a short while he does the Hamsa and stabilizes his system so that he then rests in the essence of his being, which is Hamsa. Hamsa, the meaning of Hamsa is I am that. It is another way of saying Tattvamasi. Hum. So.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, next is from Viraja Amravati. Babaji, what exactly happens after death?
Oh.
Does the soul return due to its karma or due to attachment at the time of death? Why do we practice karma kandas when we strongly believe that the soul never dies?
To the last question, I would say if you really believe the soul never dies, you can do away with the karma kanda. But most people don't. They still have halfway here, one leg here, then karma kanda is all right. You need to practice till you are free of it. Only we are fully convinced that the Atman is immortal, it neither is born nor then there is no function for karma kanda. As far as what happens after death, I don't think we need to speculate on this right now. Let's take care of what we can do while we are living, so that it will take care of what will happen after we leave the body. That we should concentrate on now and not what there are many versions. I can speculate, I can give you some, but it's of no use. Stay with what you are now. Try to handle it here so that when you leave the body, you live in perfect freedom. There is no bondage, there is no coming back. This is the thing we need to utilize. Now, don't think of what is happening after death. In fact, if there is a way by which every second you can die to yourself. If you master that, then you are free. There is no rebirth. Actually, if you look at it, every second we are dying only in a way. We can't go back to the second that we left behind. It is dead, right? It doesn't require any serious physics. It's simple, common sense. But we like to believe it is there. So, okay. I think we should stop.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, sir.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
Namaskar. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir.
Namaste. Thank you.